as a competitor and as an athlete myself, I always sought out the best competition that would help me be a better athlete.
You're listening to Good Faith Weekly. I'm Mitch Randall.
And I'm Missy Randall.
We're here each week exploring the intersection of faith and culture
We find people who stand up, speak out, and step forward.
for inclusion, freedom, and justice for all.
It's time for Good Faith Weekly.
Brought to you by Good Faith Media. Welcome to Good Faith Weekly. On this episode, Missy and I are going to be talking about the conclave happening over in the Vatican as the Catholic Church is choosing their new leader. And then later on the pod, we sat down with Reverends Kelsey Davis and Georgette McKee, who are the co-founders of Christian Athlete Circles. It is a great pod, so stay tuned. Hello there, Missy.
Hey, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Well, I think I've made Jesus mad. I mean, again, per usual, right?
I was going to say, he's always a little bit irritated at you, but
Probably so.
But you're saying he is mad, so tell us about
I think
it.
I must have, because remember a couple of weeks ago when it was Easter and we came on the podcast and I made a joke about what feels better to you, an empty tomb or an empty storage unit?
Yeah, that was a close call.
Yeah, and you enthusiastically said an empty storage unit,
Yes,
because
I
there's
did.
no kind of satisfaction like cleaning out a storage unit that you had.
Right.
So yes, it just occurred to me we did that, cleaned out the storage unit. I made a joke about the empty tomb and the empty storage unit, and so then to smite me, he has sent 14 inches of rain that have flooded the garage that we moved all of that stuff into. And so it took me a minute, but I'm like, okay, I get it now. I get it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, don't make fun of the risen Lord, Missy.
I guess I shouldn't. So anyways, yeah, mad props for winning this round.
Jesus 1, Missy 0.
Exactly. So yes, we are currently,
Or I should say 14-0.
right. So we are still currently battling just torrential rains in our area. I
Yeah.
don't know if anybody has followed along. Someone told me the other day it hadn't really made national news, and because there's so much else going on.
Yeah.
But
Can't believe everybody didn't stop and see what was going on in Oklahoma.
right. But we've just had torrential rains. The Red River, which is the river that separates Texas and Oklahoma, is up to the bridge and the highway. If you've seen any
Look
drone
at you.
footage.
Look at you spouting off geography.
Hey, I don't know much geography, but I do know that Red River. So yes, I mean roads washed out, all sorts of things, and it's been kind of crazy. But
Yeah,
yes,
we actually attended a wedding down in Texas over the weekend, and on the way back, I mean, it was crusting. I don't know if it's even finalized yet in its crusting, but I mean, he was getting close to that bridge. It was pretty impressive.
it was real scary because you think,
Yeah.
at what point does a bridge go out?
Right.
Because we've seen video of other roads and things that have been washed out.
Sure.
So yeah, I was a little nervous going across that bridge.
Yeah.
But anyways,
We got through.
I don't want to make light of something that has been very catastrophic.
Yeah.
And honestly, for us too, we're dealing with a lot of real actual damage. So yeah, that's not been fun,
It has not been.
but we're okay.
So next Easter will be.
No jokes at Jesus' expense, you guys.
There's the lesson, Missy. That's what I wanted to hear.
We do not make light of that. So yes. Anyways, but other than that, we're all kind of waiting with bated breath right now.
Yes.
As of the recording of this episode, we do not have a new pope,
No.
but that is all that's taking up space and kind of the high drama of social media.
Yeah, Conclave 2025 is underway. And guess what? We've got a correspondent there. Steve Harmon is in Vatican Square covering the new election of a pope, the conclave, I should say. So check out all of his posts this week and his videos. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, he's writing about the experience, and it's such a cool thing to kind of feel like you're there alongside
Yeah,
somebody.
absolutely.
I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying kind of the drama of it. I'm
Right.
also enjoying the kind of the interesting nature of the conclave and just this language of it seems to be a collective we,
Mm-hmm.
whether you're Catholic or not. And
Yeah.
I guess it's probably always been a little bit that way, but I guess it,
Well, do you know what the word Catholic means?
no.
Universal. So it is a universal we.
Oh, really?
Yes. So you're on to something,
All
Missy
right,
Randall.
way
Way to go.
Way to call me out here.
That was affirming you.
Fun fact, vocabulary is one area in school I absolutely stunk. Yes, had a notoriously terrible vocabulary.
Mhm.
So, yes, very, very good grades, got through all of that, but the teachers were like, yeah, your vocabulary could really use some help.
Well,
Anyways.
so your point is taken. We are all
We, the
waiting
collective
with
we're
bated breath.
with
Yes.
bated breath. So in, the spirit of celebration of the conclave,
Yes.
we have not, in a minute, had a
Oh,
quiz.
come on.
It's been a long time, right?
Oh my gosh. Yes, it has been. All right. I'm sure this Protestant can get at least 50% of these questions.
So we'll do a little mix of fun facts and quiz here, and we'll start out with some easy ones. How many cardinals take part in the conclave?
Oh my gosh. 167?
No, 133.
Oh, well, I was close.
You haven't been watching any TV, have you?
I have not.
What percentage of the vote is required to elect the next pope?
Oh, I think I do know this. It's not 50%. It's 67%.
2/3?
Yeah.
Or 2/3?
That's what I was going to go with. Tomato.
So that'd be what, 66.666?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, don't go there.
Shouldn't go there.
Let's go with 2/3.
We'll go with 2/3. How's that? Okay. Do you know, take a guess at how long the longest election of a pope took?
Oh my gosh. Probably 2.5 days.
The longest? The
Yeah.
longest time it took to elect a pope?
Yeah.
You're going with 2.5 days?
In modern era.
I didn't say modern era.
Oh, okay. Well, back in the day.
Back in your day?
Yeah, back in the day, I think it probably took maybe a year.
1,006 days.
Wow. So 3 years. That's amazing.
And man, you are just a spot with the quick math right now, right?
Hey, yeah, well.
That was in 1268.
Mhm.
So political, religious, and family motivations divided the cardinals, preventing a majority during a time when cardinals were not cut off from the outside world. Needless to say, that prompted some reform and, led to them being sequestered and
Sure.
not allowed to interact
That
with
was a
anyone
smart
else.
move.
I mean, probably so. Yes. We're going to keep you trapped here until you get your business done.
Exactly.
Yes. Relatable. No, wait. What? Okay. So also, the cardinals will be on a strict diet during the conclave. Do you know why?
Oh, wow. No, I have no idea.
To prevent secret messaging.
What?
I know. In an attempt to influence cardinals and establish communication between the conclave and the outside world, messages have previously been hidden in food coming into the Sistine Chapel during the voting process.
Oh my gosh.
Apparently,
Wow.
somebody mentioned ravioli, you stick. I don't know about you. I'm not pulling anything out of a ravioli to read it. That's kind of gross.
It's kind of like prison. I mean, they put shivs in there.
I guess,
Get
but
with the
apparently,
conclave.
and I checked a couple of different sources
crazy.
and I should mention that the bulk of my comes from a great article in Time magazine this week about these fun facts. Sorry, I forgot to mention that ahead of time. But yeah, I checked somewhere else and apparently that is valid.
That's amazing.
So the food is all prepared in-house, obviously by the nuns. And yeah, nothing outside, no messages can be shoved in, I don't know, your veal piccata or whatever they're eating.
Well, it makes complete sense because in the movie Conclave, Stanley Tucci was one of the cardinals, so I'm assuming he prepared all the food. So
of course. Yeah. So that was kind of an interesting thing. And also another great motivator for them to get their work done.
Absolutely.
Because,
Very true.
The diet would get more restrictive as
Right.
the days go on. Most of us know that the black smoke signals no pope has been elected,
Correct.
and white smoke signals that a pope has been selected.
Got a pope. Absolutely.
Do you happen to know what chemicals are used to do this?
Oh, no, I have no idea.
Okay. You know what? When I typed this question, I wasn't really thinking of the fact that I'm going to now have to pronounce the answer. If a majority is not met, the ballot papers are added to a mixture of potassium perchlorate, anthracene, and sulfur to create the black smoke.
Well, of course, I get the sulfur.
Sure. Smells lovely. A different recipe of potassium chlorate, lactose, and chloroform resin will be added to the papers and burned to create white smoke when he's been elected.
Okay, so that is some impressive knowledge. That's going way deep into that.
It is. Well, it's not my knowledge. You know what? Copy paste is a great thing for our podcast intro, let me tell you. Yeah, so on May
That's pretty cool.
2nd, firefighters were seen installing the special chimney. I
Mhm.
guess they have to install a
Yeah,
special
they
chimney
did.
each
I
time.
did know that. So that's
Okay,
pretty
well,
cool.
I didn't know that. Do you know how old the oldest pope was upon election?
I'm gonna guess 72.
80.
8 years off.
Adrian the First elected in 772.
Yeah, just before my time.
Yes. Do you know how old the youngest pope was upon election?
Oh my goodness, 60.
60?
60.
60?
Yeah.
12.
What?
I know. Yeah, right. That's what I read. The youngest pope elected was Benedict IX, elected in AD 1032 at age 12, though many believe he was closer to 20 when he actually assumed the papacy.
Mhm.
But life expectancy back then,
Yeah,
Mitch.
well,
I mean,
that's
come
true.
on.
That's true. There's the plague and everything.
I mean, Jesus did something at 12, didn't he? Right?
yeah, I
Pretty
did
sure.
something.
So there you have it. Some fun facts about the conclave that is, as of this recording, still happening.
Yep.
I suspect maybe by the time the pod drops, we will know who the new pope is.
Well,
Do you have any predictions?
I do not have a prediction, but our insider has been providing some incredible insights to the entire conclave. And there's been a lot of guesses in the media lately. After the election of Pope Francis, who was the first South American pope, there's a lot of speculation that we may see our first African pope or our first Asian pope,
Mhm.
which would be really cool. And so I'm excited about it. Like you said, while it is the leader of the Roman Catholic Church, it does have an effect upon us all. And we're all waiting for the election of a new pope. So I'm excited to see it. Make sure you check out all of the coverage this week at goodfaithmedia.org. There is a frenzy about all of this, and it's about the Catholic Church being more inclusive. And that's always a positive thing.
I hope that's what comes of it. We
Yep.
shall see.
Absolutely. Well, Missy, speaking of inclusion, you and I sat down with the co-founders of a new organization called Christian Athlete Circles. We sat down with Reverends Kelsey Davis and Georgette McKee to talk about what they're doing in the world of sports. It was a really delightful conversation we had with them.
Yes, they are wonderful. And not only did they tell us about their organization and gave some great insight into what they're doing and their motivations, they also tackled some tough subjects
Yeah.
like trans athletes
Yeah.
in women's sports. And I made notes. I thought it was such a beautiful communication about that topic that is very divisive right now, and so I just really respected and was really so glad that they were willing to speak to that, along with just telling us about their organization and all the great work that they're doing.
Absolutely. We'll be right back with Kelsey and Georgia. Good Faith Media is the new home of A Sermon for Every Sunday. This free resource offers lectionary-based video sermons by America's best preachers for use in worship, Bible study, small groups, Sunday school classes, or for individual use. All you do is push the button. With A Sermon for Every Sunday, you can be inspired by and learn from some amazing preachers: Otis Moss III, Amy Butler, Brian McLaren, Starlette Thomas, Will Willimon, Michael Curry, and many, many more. Hundreds and hundreds of free sermons are waiting just for you. You can find them at goodfaithmedia.org or asermonforeverysunday.com. Welcome back to Good Faith Weekly. On this episode, we've got two very special guests with us. Reverends Kelsey Davis and Georgette McKee are co-founders of Christian Athlete Circles, a community where athletes from across Christian traditions and beliefs can belong, grow, pray, and live out their faith together. Kelsey is an Episcopal priest and former professional soccer player. She holds a Master's of Divinity and Certificate of Religion in the Arts and Contemporary Culture from Vanderbilt Divinity School. She is an enrolled Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma member and lives in Asheville, North Carolina with her wife Heather and their two children. Georgia is a Baptist minister, writer, and former NCAA Division I athlete. Georgia earned her Master of Divinity from Wake Forest University School of Divinity. She is a pastoral resident at Wilshire Baptist Church, where she and her wife, Sophia, live in Dallas, Texas. Kelsey, Georgia, welcome to Good Faith Weekly.
Thanks. We're so happy to be here.
Thank you, guys. We're pumped to be with you.
Kelsey, we're going to start with you. Since you were a former professional soccer player and I am a current recovering soccer mom, I need to know, can you please explain offsides to me?
Wow, we're jumping right into the most controversial topics.
Absolutely. So basically, the whole premise of offsides is that the forward, or a player on the attacking team has to stay in front of the last line of defense. So the ball can get behind the defense first, and then the player can't get behind the defense before the ball gets there.
All I know is that when you're on the sidelines, you have very definite opinions on whether it was actually offsides or not.
The defensive players do as well.
Yes.
100%. And this is where, as technology has evolved with VAR and camera angles, and I mean, you can be 2 inches of a shoulder past, right? Ahead. So it's gotten even more heated, I think, in recent years with the VAR technology.
Well, I just know in the section of the stands where all the moms sat, we're all like, "No, wait a minute, what? Explain it again." So I appreciate that. Thank you. This is why you came here today, and now we're done. So I guess now, Kelsey, we can pivot by talking about the reason we're here, which is about Christian Athlete Circle. We're super excited to be working alongside you guys, but we want to give our listeners a chance to get to know you. So tell us where the idea came from and how it got started.
I think that the seed for CAC was born in me really early. I didn't even know that the seed had been planted. Probably when I was in high school and I started to really explore my faith. I already was an athlete and held that identity sacred when I was in high school as a teenager. And then once I started to explore this Jesus thing, this Christian thing, and then I simultaneously was coming out at 16. And so this sort of trifecta of identity of being an athlete, being a woman that was really attracted to other women, and a budding brand new Christian, really seeking and wanting a place where all three of those identities could be held and counted as sacred. And didn't find it. Went through, high school, college, professional ranks, into coaching, and just sort of always was longing for a space where I could fully be myself and without apology, and without condition. And then I went to seminary, I went to divinity school, met my dear friend and mentor, Scott Owings, who is also an athlete. He's an Episcopal priest, and didn't know it. But Georgia had also met Scott, and Scott in his goodness is a connector of human beings. And so it was after I was at Vanderbilt that I think Scott connected Georgia and I, and he really just said, "I think you two need to talk." And we got to talking, and my wife got tired of hearing me say that someone should create a new seat at the sports ministry table that's open and affirming. So I think it was simultaneously Scott introducing me to Georgia, and then my wife saying, "Stop waiting for someone else to do something about this. I think you need to do something about this." And I said, "Well, I don't believe in leading alone." And so I think Georgia and I had one conversation and talked for a couple of hours, and by the end of it, we sort of threw out the idea to each other of, what if we tried to do this thing together and go find out who else cares um, about this like we do, and we have been growing this community ever
All right,
since.
so Georgia, what did you think when you got that phone call?
Oh, I thought I was so nervous at first, because I came out later in college. Grew up I was in a very evangelical spaces and did not know really a whole lot of other queer people. And so the fact that I knew that I was meeting someone, who was married to a woman who was also an athlete and who went to Vanderbilt Divinity School, and at the time I was applying to divinity schools. And so I was first off just like so excited and had no idea that there was another person like me out there. So I was just kind of pumped, and Kelsey and I hit it off from like the moment we started talking to one another. And as soon as we started asking questions about the world and started dreaming about what could be, like there was just kind of like this light that was created in both of us. And it was one of the most holy feelings I'd ever felt. And I grew up like, I mean, I was like pretty like charismatic Pentecostal, so like the feelings, like the gooey feelings, that means everything to me. You know, like when you know something's good, you know something's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in that phone call, I knew something special was there, and I knew that that wasn't going to be the last conversation that we had, and we've had like 5 years of friendship since that and working together, and it has just been one of the biggest blessings in my life. So.
Yeah.
So, talk to us a minute, Georgia, about the connection between faith and athletics.
Mm.
The connection between faith and athletics is pretty strong. I mean, if you turn on the ESPN or NFL Network, you're probably not going to get through 30 minutes without hearing some sort of athlete, giving glory to God or talking about their faith or wearing a cross or a Bible verse across their face.
Sure.
And so for decades, there has been this strong presence of religion in athletics. But for me personally, faith was always, or athletics, I should say, was always the avenue for my faith, especially being evangelical growing up.
Yeah.
That was my mission field, right? Like I was taught, like your team is your mission field. So maybe that's more so the relationship between evangelicalism and sports than it is faith and sport and the identity as an individual athlete. One of the beautiful things I think about being an athlete is that, I mean, you're so in your body, you're so aware of what's happening in your body that like you have to be connected to who you are. You have to understand yourself as a human being beyond just someone who can lift heavy weights or throw a ball really hard.
Mhm.
You have to be so aware of who you are as a whole self because everything is connected.
Yeah.
And so you have to be really aware of how are you doing mentally, what are you eating, how are you sleeping, and your faith is a huge part of that, of what's driving me, what are my values, who do I want to be as a person, as a teammate, as a leader. And so faith is very much woven in, just like any other kind of identity, I think, as an athlete.
So, Kelsey, I'm going to ask about the Core Four here in just a second. And I love the name Core Four. It just sounds really cool. But before I do, talking about faith and sports, there's going to be a lot of listeners who hear this and say, oh, yeah, I was part of Fellowship of Christian Athletes growing up or attended those meetings. So, talk to us a little bit about the delineation between Fellowship and Christian Athletes and Christian athlete circles.
Yeah, sure. Well, first and foremost, Georgia and I were actually on a call earlier today, with a wonderful person that is I think fairly involved in Fellowship of Christian Athletes,
Mhm.
and is stems from an evangelical theology and evangelical location. And we had such a great conversation with this person. We have many friends who are involved in FCA and AIA, and I know chaplains very well who faithfully minister to so many people and athletes out of those organizations. And so just really want to say up front that, we have a deep respect and
Yeah.
appreciation for all of the ministries, sports ministries that already exist and have existed for a long time. And that we at CAC are really excited, I think, to pull up a chair, to have a seat at the table and to build common ground and dialogue across our commonalities, across our common heartbeat to love and serve, God's people, specifically in the athletic community, as well as to acknowledge our differences, and to hold those differences as an opportunity to learn from each other. Oftentimes I think I can get caught up in thinking that it's more important to be right about something, than it is to seek to understand or to be transformed by someone who's different than I am. And so where we differ, Mitch, is really in our theology. Yeah. We deeply believe and are committed and believe it's a faithful read of scripture that the image of God dwells in every single person, that human sexuality and that gender identity and orientation is a creative expression of God the creator, that it's not a monolith. There's no one right way to chalk this all up. Instead, that we really embrace diversity, and diversities. And so, for us, following the way of Christ, being faithful to scripture, our theology says that it is most important to love God and to love each other and to love ourselves, in our authenticity and as we are created to be. Something that surprises people is that they think because we affirm the rainbow spectrum, if
Right.
you will, that somehow we don't take sin seriously. And I couldn't disagree more. I mean, I come from a liturgical tradition that has a confession built into it on purpose. Lent is a full season of repentance and acknowledging the ways that we intentionally or unintentionally harm each other, and harm creation and harm ourselves, and that God calls us to turn from that and turn back to love and to liberation and, to the goodness that we were created, for and to share. And so I will be the first one to say that, I am caught up in sin, and I think it's important to talk about the ways that we separate ourselves, from each other. So just to name that, we hold both an open and affirming theology that does not exist in other sports ministries. And we also take sin very seriously and consciously, and both those things are true.
Oh my gosh, Kelsey, that was a beautiful explanation. Thank you so much. And as a Baptist, I think I just got preached to, and in a good way. That was wonderful.
I was feeling a little convicted there for a minute when she was talking about, learning from people who think differently and whatever.
You were about to walk forward, weren't you?
No, I was about to leave, actually.
All right, Georgia, let's talk about those core four. That is central to the identity of CAC. So tell us a little bit about the core four.
So when Kelsey and I were creating Christian athlete circles, we were just asking ourselves questions of what do we want to build this thing on and what's important to us, and also what do athletes need? How are we going to put wisdom and knowledge into the hands of athletes? These people who are so busy, like athletes, their schedule is just unlike any other, especially a college athlete. Unlike any other college student on the campus, like you're not going to church on Sundays because you're on the road. You can't go to some random Wednesday night Bible study that a campus ministry is having because you have a midweek game. And so we wanted to kind of create a flow and also something for us to stand on. And so we have our core four is belong, grow, pray, act.
Love that.
And so belong is, and this is all on our website, fleshed out, but belong is just the inerrant statement that all people are created in the image of God and are works of art from God. grow, we believe that we're always growing. Like Kelsey just described, we can always learn more from one another. We believe the spiritual formation is so important. We're not just the gay athlete organization, as kind of the haters want to call us. We deeply believe that spiritual formation is essential to the Christian life, especially a young Christian athlete. Prayer is at the center of everything that we do. We're always wanting to make sure that we stay in prayer. We're always wanting to make sure we're looking back to the scriptures, that we're praying for one another, that we're lifting each other up, and also that we're holding space, that we're ritualizing the high highs and the low lows. We're making space not just to talk to God, but to listen. And so we really, really center ourselves on prayer and then action. All of this leads us to social justice. All of this leads us to loving our neighbor, to caring for the poor, to go out and to play our best and win or lose. That's not a reflection on how much we pray to God. But what is how much are we loving our neighbor? How much are we caring for our teammates and showing up as leaders in every space that we're in? And so this kind of centers everything that we do. We have a weekly devotional that we send out on Monday mornings called the Weekly Huddle. And so that Belong, Grow, Pray, Act, that's the flow of how we do devotionals. And it's also kind of the flow of how Kelsey and I have our conversations. And when we're thinking about who are we as an organization, we're not going to just be the FCA that allows gay people in. I think they, like Kelsey said, they do a great job at other things. But we have this flow and this theology that allows us to center ourselves on each other, but mainly on scripture and prayer and belonging.
Yeah, love that. Okay, so Kelsey, Georgia just mentioned the website. Oh my gosh, it's a great website. So many resources for athletes out there. So tell us now. Missy's going to ask a question later on in the interview about the podcast, and we'll get to that. But besides the podcast, there's just a breadth of resources available for athletes. So talk a little bit about the rest of those the resources you have on the site.
Our hope is to be a resource, and to truly, as a chaplain or a chaplaincy does, is to accompany the spiritual journey. And so we see our website as part of that accompaniment, of part of that chaplaincy, that the curation of resources is really important to us. And so we have an athlete prayer library that we are continuously updating and adding more prayers to, that may be specific around different experiences that athletes might go through. So, for example, a prayer for a season-ending injury, or a prayer for when my roommate is annoying.
Wait, can I get a copy of that?
Hey, now we're getting personal.
That's right. That's right. And so Georgia and I are constantly thinking through, what's going on in the athlete's experience. How can we use our creativity to help write prayers for those moments? I think, Georgia, for me, a lot of these have come to me while I'm like lifting or while I'm out on a run. And so they really are sort of trying to honor the everyday moment, the everyday life, and sacredness that is always in our midst. So we have the athlete prayer library. We just launched our coaching page. So we have some folks who are trained and certified in spiritual direction, life coaching, and the Enneagram. And some other skills in between. And so we really want to also be a resource if athletes or the athletic community is looking to get linked up, that we can help connect them to a one-to-one coach, or a small group coach. We have books, we have a library that we've curated, we have a blog, and then we certainly have our partner page, where we have intentionally entered into MOUs with various partners, Good Faith Media being one of them.
Thanks for the shout out.
Yeah, and also, some mental health organizations, some counselors, some other stuff. So there's just sort of a well of resource to check out.
And you can find all of that at christianathletecircles.org.
I want to ask another question, not related specifically to the organization, but you cannot get on social media if, you have any breadth of social media community at all without seeing something about trans athletes. People feel very strongly about this. And so given that this is obviously the space that you guys operate within, I was just wondering if you'd be willing to speak to that a little bit. And Kelsey, we'll start with you and let you maybe offer your thoughts.
Yeah. So my thoughts, I've been in this conversation for a minute in various contexts, trying to really listen and to learn. And I will continue, my commitment is to continue to listen and to learn. I've also helped coach some trans athletes, and I am no expert in this conversation. What I will say, I'm pretty clear at this point on a few things. One, every single human being deserves dignity and respect and opportunity. Full stop.
Yep.
Two, trans women are women. Trans women are women. And so if trans women would like to play women's sports, they should be able to play women's sports. The other thing I'm clear about is that as a competitor and as an athlete myself, I always sought out the best competition that would help me be a better athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And so I played with boys growing up. I played with women that were older than me. I always pushed and challenged myself to bring myself to the edges of my own capacity so that I could always learn and grow. And so what I'm really clear about is that if you can hang and you can compete, let's go. Let's play. I also would recommend, highly recommend to our listeners, a book by Katie Barnes called Fair Play: How Sports Shape the Gender Debates. Katie has done a tremendous job at offering somewhat of a summary of this conversation around trans athletes that is pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
So highly recommend Fair Play. So just to be clear, I embrace, I welcome trans women, trans athletes in sport. I think that, like we say at CAC, we always are looking to grow the circle wider. And I think as we expand and welcome more, we're all better for it.
Love that.
So if I'm going to err on a side, I'm going to err on the side of, come on, let's go, let's play.
I love that. Georgia, do you have anything to add?
No, everything Kelsey just said. I'll just say the thing that makes me really frustrated about this argument about trans women playing in women's sports is that the people making this argument aren't investing in women's sports. They're not watching it. They're not putting their money towards it. They're not lifting like female athletes up. And if they did, they would listen to the people like the female athletes who are talking about this, who are saying, "Come on, let's play with me."
Point.
And so I get heated at, John1234 Twitter user that is starting all of these debates against trans women in sports because I think that it's a lowball excuse to hate people and to come after trans women. And so I hate that has entered our sports community.
Wow, that's great.
Well, thank you so much. I know that's such a difficult topic to kind of speak to because again, like you said, John1234 on Twitter is has some pretty strong and hateful opinions. So I appreciate you both addressing that. You did a beautiful job. I love what you said.
Absolutely. All right, Georgia, before we sign off, and we have one last question for you, but before we do that, I've got to talk about your podcast because you guys have multiple seasons of the pod. So tell us, the name of the pod, what's it about, what can listeners expect, and where can we find it to listen?
Totally. So we have a podcast called the Spirit of Sport Podcast. It sits at the intersection of faith, culture, leadership, and sports. And so season 1 is out right now on YouTube and Spotify, where Kelsey and one of our friends, Reverend Dr. Shannon Spencer, get on and have a conversation about Actually, Kelsey, I would love for you to talk
All
about Give
right.
Me a Word, because what they did with this season one, was pretty incredible. These are bite-sized, 15 to 20-minute episodes, because again, athletes have a really short attention span. We need to get them something where they can just listen to, put their AirPods on, and walk to the next class or jump in their car and head to the field
Sure.
for practice. But they crammed in 15 and 20 minutes incredible wisdom, talking about just one simple word. And before Kelsey tells us about season one, I will say season two is coming up. It's getting released this summer with Good Faith Media
We're a
Productions.
proud partner in this production. That's exciting.
There it is. That's the plug. And that you're tossing me. You're doing soft toss, is
Yeah,
what we
I
call
am.
it.
That's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Wait,
I
wait,
did
we cannot
years.
have
I did years and years of soft toss.
no more sports ball terms for the unathletic among us, all right?
Missy, we welcome you. We're all retired enough, so we're all the same. But season two will be out this summer. We are interviewing legends across the athletic community. We're calling this season Game Changers. These are people who, in difficult times, when tensions are high, when they're in the face of injustice, they have done something to make a change and to stand up and to fight. So we ask them questions about, how do you stay grounded? How do you stay rooted in your values? And what do you offer to the next generation of coaches, administrators, and athletes coming up? And so that's a bit of a teaser of, we've got some incredible guests, some that you'll recognize, some that I think will be new to this community. But that's coming up this summer.
That's exciting. And Kelsey, you are the co-host of that podcast, right? So yeah.
I am. I am so grateful to get to co-host season 2 with Georgia. And we were recording actually just last week. And I almost feel like, Georgia, we need to offer up to listeners a prize if they listen to every episode and find the common thread. Because what was amazing is we were interviewing these folks from all different walks of life. We had the same 3 reoccurring core questions to the interview. And it gives me the chills because there was a theme that started to emerge as we were asking about wisdom around, what do you do in the face of injustice? What do you do to stay grounded? Where do we start? And by the end of our days of recording, Georgia and I are like in tears, weeping, and also it was uncanny that there is a common thread. And so I feel like if you can find the common thread in season 2, you will get some free CAC swag or something.
Awesome.
That also guarantees that you listen to every episode.
That's absolutely right.
I was gonna say, that's a great tactic.
Yeah,
We need to figure that out.
Yeah. So season 2 is coming out this summer. That is outstanding. Well, Reverends, thank you so much for joining us this week on Good Faith Weekly. Really enjoyed having you on. Look forward to our partnership as it continues to grow. So many good things coming down the road. And again, just thank you both for being guests. But before we let you go, we've got one last question for each of you, and Missy has the honor of asking it.
All right, Kelsey and Georgia. As you know, our tagline at Good Faith Media is "There's more to tell." So, in light of your work and our conversation today, what is your more to tell? Georgia, we'll start with you.
My more to tell is that love and healing are always worth fighting for. And that if that's not always at the center of what you're doing, then it's not worth doing.
Love it.
Love that. All right, Kelsey, what is your more to tell?
My more to tell is that I believe that it's better to be present than to be perfect, and to be connected than to be correct.
Wow.
So choosing presence, choosing kindness is the way to go.
I love that.
Kelsey's going to turn this Baptist into an Episcopalian.
Listen, I've spent 5 years with her, and it's amazing that I'm not in Episcopal seminary right now.
Right?
That is great. Well, Kelsey Davis, Georgia McKee, thank you so much for joining us. You can find out more about Christian Athlete Circles at christianathletecircles.org. You two are welcome back to Good Faith Weekly anytime. Thanks for being our guest this week.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So, Mitch, I think that one of the points that really popped into my mind as Georgia and Kelsey were talking about athletes. I like sports. I mean, I dabbled a little bit in gymnastics and cheer and stuff
Mhm.
like that as a kid, but was never what you would consider an athlete. So the
But you can throw a football. I've seen you throw a
oh,
football,
I
and
can
you got a tight spiral.
absolutely throw a
That's
football.
impressive.
I can throw a football. I was the only girl in our block that was ever invited to play football with the boys
Toot,
because I
toot.
could throw the football. I will absolutely toot my own horn on
That's
that.
impressive. That's impressive.
When you got like one skill, you got to go with it. But anyways, yeah, so but something that they were speaking to that jumped out at me was about athletes and spirituality
Yeah.
and why they're so interconnected, and talking about how an athlete is someone who is truly connected to their whole self, to their whole
Mhm.
body, the physical, the spiritual, the mental, all of it. Then, from nutrition to sleep to everything, you have to be in tune with every part of your body in
Right.
order to perform at your best level. And also speaking to in particular to their organization, Kelsey was saying, talking about wanting to be in a place where her whole self could be welcome, where you
Mhm.
don't have to compartmentalize and leave this part at the door.
Mhm.
Um, and it really made me think of what you have, adopted as of late, which is a theology of wholeness,
Mhm.
and how that does really envelop your whole self, and like in the way that an athlete would.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because, yes, absolutely. Sometimes in this area of Christian ministry, we can get focused on one area of spirituality. But what I really like about Christian athlete circles is that they are focusing on the whole person. And this theology of wholeness that we've been talking about, I think, is central to this idea. And I can remember growing up in sports. I was an athlete growing up. I dabbled in a few sports.
You dabbled in a few sports. Not many people have a jersey
Hey,
retired.
hey, hey, hey. But, I can remember, obviously taking care of the physical self. I mean, as athletes, you got to take care of, your coordination, trying to get stronger, trying to get faster. But at the same time, you also had to be mentally prepared. And I can remember, especially in baseball, I had coaches that would actually help us in our mental preparedness. And one particular coach in high school bought these cassette tapes. Uh,
Wait, what's that?
it was after the 8-track, but right before CDs.
Wait, when did records come in? Records were in there somewhere, yes?
They were in there. Yeah, they were always there. They're still there.
Okay, kids. A cassette tape is a little plastic box you put in another machine and it plays music. Or I guess in your case, maybe not music.
No, it was this calming voice. And we would go into the locker room and we were told to find a comfortable place, whether that was on the locker room floor, which sounds disgusting.
That is so
As I
gross.
think about it, or on a bench. We would
Also gross.
It's also gross. But we would get relaxed and then the exercise would begin. And the person on the tape would walk us through breathing exercises and how to exhale negative energy and to inhale positive energy and positive thoughts. And, when we first started it, I mean, we smirked. I mean, we were,
Oh, I'm
16
sure.
to 18-year-old kids thinking this is the most ridiculous thing we ever, experienced. But we had to obey our coach. And so we did it. Well, I have to admit to you, I still use those techniques. I
Mhm.
mean, I use them as a baseball player right before I'd go up to the plate to hit. I use them as a pastor right before I stood behind a pulpit, and I use them today before a camera turns on and I have to speak before a camera. It was important to me to take care of my mental self, and then also, your nutrition, all about it. And so that's why I like this philosophy that Kelsey and Georgia are promoting. It is, in my opinion, as you mentioned, a theology of wholeness.
Right. When you walk through that door, you bring every part of you
Exactly.
with yourself, and then your focus is on making sure your whole self is performing at its best.
Right.
And that includes all of those things we talked about: spiritual,
Absolutely.
mental, physical, all of those things.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I really loved, again, I mentioned it in the intro, just what in particular Kelsey had said about trans women athletes.
Mhm.
And I just, you know,
She did a beautiful job
oh my
addressing
goodness.
that
And
topic.
yeah, to even be willing to speak to it was just mad respect from me. But I just wrote down, the first two things that she said. I know two things, I need to listen and to learn, and I'm no expert.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about that. I mean, I don't know, she came off very much expert to me, but I thought if we just would remember those things in life on any topic, man, that would be amazing. Listen, learn, and don't feel like you're the expert.
Yeah.
That was just a great little nugget of wisdom. And then the other thing she said, every human deserves dignity, respect, and opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to approach these conversations in that way.
Absolutely.
And if you don't start there, nothing productive is coming next.
Agreed.
And the next one was trans women are women.
Yeah.
And then the third thing she said is, as a competitor, I thought this was so interesting. She said, as a competitor, she was always seeking out more competition because that's what helped her grow and get better.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, so if you can compete, bring it.
Right.
And I just thought, oh, duh. Again, I'm not an athlete. So that doesn't like compute to me. But when you say that, when you get in the mind of the athlete, and then what Georgia mentioned about people who are, John 1, 2, 3, 4 on Twitter, who are griping the loudest, they're not the ones supporting women's sports. They're not talking to female athletes. Anyways, I just thought they did a great job. I hadn't really heard anybody speak quite as eloquently as they did to that subject. I really appreciated it.
Yeah. They inserted the human element to this issue. We talk about these issues on a very high level, and we forget the human side of these topics, that these are human beings, that they're made in the image of God, and they have mothers and fathers, they have siblings, they have friends, and they're very human. And so I think we all need to be reminded, and what you just mentioned a while ago, what Kelsey said, you need to listen, learn, and
realize we're not the expert.
Exactly. And I think the listen and learn is so vitally important, to listen to people's stories and to listen to not only the stories of trans athletes, but also of our cis athletes as well, because they're the ones in competition.
Mm-hmm.
It's not politicians, it's not preachers, it's people who are in the arena.
Right.
And let's listen to them and take guidance from them. That's what's important. And Kelsey and Georgia just brought that to light. I really appreciated their comments on it.
Yeah, so I really look forward to seeing where this organization goes. I'm excited that we get to work with them and follow along in their success.
Absolutely. Well, Missy, it's time for our Hope and Joy segment. So what is your joy this week?
Well, my joy this week is in looking forward to this weekend, because with all of the stuff we've been dealing with our house in the rain, I have a Saturday that I'm so excited about. And
it's because you get to spend the day with me, right?
No, you're actually not invited to any of it.
Shocker.
So yes, my Saturday will start with a Beyonce drag brunch.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm very excited.
Yeah.
I'm going with some friends who are big queen. What do they call them? Beehive?
Queen bee, yeah.
Beehive?
Yeah,
Beehive.
I don't know.
I don't know. Anyways.
We're not that young.
I'm not that cool, you guys, but I am happily going along because I think it'll be fun.
Yeah.
And then my Saturday night,
Mm-hmm.
we are going to an old haunted house here in Norman, which is actually right down the street from us.
Yes.
And gonna go on a ghost hunt. Like, it's the
Oh my
historical
gosh.
museum, and they're putting on this ghost hunt. I guess they're bringing in I don't know, not machines, but like measuring things you use.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never done anything like this before. It just looked fun.
Yeah.
So I was like, why not? So we're going to go ghost hunting.
Well, make sure you keep all of the ghost and poltergeist off of our street. That would be
I know.
terrific.
I'm a little worried. This is going to do nothing for me being able to rest easily here while you're out of town at all.
Exactly.
But anyways, it's just two things
that
I'm
is a good
looking
joy.
forward to. It's fun. It's an escape. And so, yeah, I'm excited about my weekend.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Well, my hope this week is just all the things that are in the air this week. We talked
The mold?
Not the mold, just the spirit of inclusivity, what's going on with the conclave and the possibility of having our first Asian and African Pope. And then our visit with Georgia and Kelsey, just what they're doing with Christian athlete circles and just widening the tent, building a bigger table. We just need so many more organizations with that kind of spirit and attitude that, hey, let's build a bigger table and to make certain that more and more people are included. And so just the spirit of inclusivity has given me hope. And so I'm excited about it, even though you're not inviting me to your ghost hunt.
I'm not inviting you because you'll poo-poo on it. And I want to just embrace the moment and find me some ghosts.
Well, Missy, guess what?
What?
We are taking next week off.
Are you serious? That would have been my joy had I known. Not that we don't love coming here and visiting with an imaginary audience every week, but y'all, it's always nice to get a day off, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So we're taking next week off. We're going to be in Atlanta, Georgia at the Festival of Homiletics. Be sure to watch our coverage from Atlanta next week. It's going to be a great time. But then we will be back in 2 weeks with another guest. And so enjoy your week off. And until next week, everybody keep living good faith. You've been listening to Good Faith Weekly, hosted by Mitch and Missy Randall. This weekly podcast from Good Faith Media discusses matters of faith and culture.
Subscribe wherever you get your podcast and give us a like and a glowing review. We produce the podcast out of Norman, Oklahoma. Our music comes from Pond 5.
And we're supported by listeners like you. Learn more about us at goodfaithmedia.org.